Rick Dancer. This is a special edition. We didn't have time for Bill on our Thursday show because we were bombarded with new stories. We're going to be running our shows now from Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday, not on Monday. We're just getting so much content. We're moving things around. But here's what's coming up tonight from Bill Lundun, sponsored by Chris Dental Family Dentistry. The U.S. Senate messes with your retirement funds, but a Montana Democrat votes no on the whole idea. Yep, it's true. And there's a measure in Oregon that provides reparations for Black Oregonians that's being talked about. He'll give you some of that. A pay raise for lawmakers in Oregon? Really? So you're going to make it a profession now, huh? And lifting a ban on nuclear power in Oregon. Would it happen? Could it happen? Bill Lundun will tell you more about why maybe it should.
From the News Radio, 1120 and 93.7 FM, KPNW Studios, I'm Bill Lundun. You can hear me on the Wake Up Call Monday through Friday morning, 6 a.m. to 9 on this fine radio station. And this look at the news brought to you by Chris Dental and Dr. Michael Bratland. He's not afraid to drill those teeth. All right, here's a look at some of the stories we're following. All right, let's take a look at Capitol Hill. We don't do that very much. The Senate passed a fairly politically charged resolution Wednesday to overturn a Biden administration retirement investment rule that allows managers of retirement funds to consider the impact of climate change and other societal, environmental, and governance factors when picking investments. Republicans complain the rule is simply woke policy that pushes a liberal agenda on Americans and will hurt retirees' bottom lines, while Democrats say it's not about ideology, it'll help investors. The measure, which would rescind a Department of Labor rule, is going to go to President Biden's desk as it passed by the House on Tuesday. The administration, however, has issued a veto threat. As a result, passage of the resolution could pave the way for Biden to issue the very first veto of his presidency. Opponents of the rule could try to override a veto, but at this point, it doesn't look like they're going to get the two-thirds majority needed in each chamber to do that. The resolution needed a simple majority to pass the Senate, and it passed 50-46, with Democratic Senators Joe Manchin of West Virginia and John Tester of Montana, we're looking at you, Montana, voting with the Republicans. Opponents of the rule argued that it simply politicizes retirement investments, and the Biden administration was using it as a way to shove a liberal agenda down Americans' throats. In essence, the argument made by the Republicans is the Biden administration wants to let Wall Street use workers' hard-earned savings to pursue left-wing political objectives. Supporters of the rule argue it's not a mandate. It allows, but it doesn't require consideration of environmental, social, and governance factors in investment selection. But as we all know, everything is incremental, and what is voluntary now? So, Lori Lightfoot, she wrote into the Chicago mayor's office in 2019 as a reform candidate and as the first Black woman and first out gay person to hold the office, and she won during 2019 all 50 wards. Well, 4 years later, the Second City's voters demonstrated crime and competence matter when Lightfoot failed to finish in the top two and advance to the April runoff. Chicago is now the third major city in recent years with a mayoral election that will test the attitudes among a heavily Democratic electorate toward crime and policing. Now, Lightfoot in her tenure clashed constantly with not only the police, but also the teachers' unions, and pretty much anyone else with a title in her own Democratic Party, which left her with very few influential allies. Well, the voters were nonplussed as well. Violent crime spiked on Lightfoot's watch. Chicago's public transportation system is saddled with service gaps and delays, and the city's economic rebound has been sluggish, to say the least. The result was an election where Lightfoot received a thumbs up from only 1 in every 6 Chicago voters, and she's the first full-term incumbent mayor in Chicago in 40 years to lose re-election. The outcome especially underscores the electorate's focus on public safety. Violence in Chicago, as we know, spiked in 2020 and 2021. And though shootings and murders have decreased slightly since then, other crimes like theft, carjackings, robberies, and burglaries have increased exponentially since last year. So, who's going to be actually the next mayor of Chicago? Well, there's two to choose from. Paul Vallis, a former schools chief who campaigned on a tough-on-crime message, and Brandon Johnson, a Cook County commissioner with the backing of the influential teachers union. They both advanced in a head-to-head matchup that's coming up in 5 weeks. All right, let's talk about fun in Oregon. So, the legislature is in session, and Senate Bill 766 is in play, sponsored by Eugene Democratic Senator James Manning. It had a hearing on Tuesday, and that bill would create a task force on reparations and directs the task force to develop proposals for financial and non-financial reparations for Oregonians of African American descent. The other part of it is it would create a PR arm for, in the words of the bill, educating the public about the task force findings and recommending appropriate remedies based on the task force findings. Well, once again, progressive legislators in the Oregon Legislature, now with the backing from the public employees unions, a little quid pro quo here, are debating on giving themselves a very hefty pay raise. Senate Bill 786 would bring an increase in the base pay, notice I said base, of most lawmakers from $35,052 a year to more than $64,000 a year. Now, under the bill, the pay raise would take effect in January of next year, and it would be readjusted every 2 years. Of course, under the bill, lawmakers would still receive their per diem payments, currently set at $157 a day for each day they're in session, and monthly stipends for expenses incurred in the performance of official duties when they're out of session. These payments add tens of thousands of dollars a year to what legislators receive. And if you're wondering, the per diem total during long legislative sessions, $25,120. In short years, $5,495. Plus, they get $400 a month when the legislature isn't in session. That's on top of their salary, and expenses paid for any non-session appearances or work sessions, and 58.5 cents a mile for any travel. And then, of course, you have PERS benefits, and, well, yeah, they get their health insurance paid for. Eugene Democratic Senator Floyd Przansky is spearheading the effort. The Democratic arguments in favor of the raise, it will draw in more qualified legislators. Which, if you think about that argument, implies the current batch aren't qualified. I agree. Oregonians are going to be asked potentially to lift the ban on nuclear power plant construction under a bill in the legislature. There's new designs for small modular reactors and, in some states, large reactors. As a matter of fact, NuScale, which was actually developed at Oregon State University and has been cleared by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission for use and permitting in the United States, would be one of those beneficiaries. But currently, the way the laws are written in Oregon, something developed in Oregon, something that was perfected in Oregon, something that is licensed by the federal government to go into effect can't even happen here. Oregon's ban, by the way, in case you're wondering, is based on a permanent place or lack of to put radioactive waste. And we'll leave with this. So there's a proposed bill that would provide homeless people and low-income people with $1,000 a month for a year. Now, this is a pilot program. The Department of Human Services would administer the People's Housing Assistance Fund and demonstration program. It would provide 12 monthly $1,000 payments at first to individuals who've met the following criteria. They're experiencing homelessness, they're at the risk of homelessness, they're severely rent burdened, or they're earning at or below 60% of the area median income. Proponents say that rent, emergency expenses, food, childcare, and other goods and services desired by the recipient would be covered by the $1,000 payments. Now, if you actually read the bill, there are no restrictions on how the money is going to be used, and there's not going to be any tracking of how the money is going to be used. If the trial program is successful, DHS would create a plan for administrating the funds to make it permanent. It proposes that the money for these payments be taken from the general fund for the Department of Human Services with a starting amount of $1.5 billion allocated to recipients in 1 year. All right, there you have it. All right, Rick, time for you to get real. And thanks, Dr. Michael Bratland, because he brought me here.
And joining me now is Liz Maxon. She's a dental hygienist for Dr. Bratland at Chris Dental Family Dentistry and Denture Center. What are the 3 top issues you see that we could easily stop doing that would help with our dental hygiene?
Most of the time we brush too quickly. So I would say not brushing long enough, but brushing too fast is probably the number one issue I see, because when we brush too fast, we don't really have enough time. The brush doesn't have enough time to get in there and clean all of those surfaces really well. I like to tell patients that it should almost be kind of relaxing. It's almost like a meditative thing. You know, we should really be slowing down, taking our time, starting on one side and very slowly working our way to the other side.